Hello to all of our quality-minded listeners, and a special shout out to our Mayo Clinic Care Network members. Welcome to Key into Quality, a Mayo Clinic podcast focusing on healthcare quality and experience trends and solutions. Today, we're going to be diving into the evolving world of healthcare safety, specifically through the lens of Safety 2.0 and high reliability organizations. Now, for those of you who are not yet thinking about safety as either a version 1 or a version 2, these labels represent different perspectives on safety. I was trying to think about how to explain these two concepts when I hit upon a strange idea. A famous painting came to mind. Diego Velázquez's Las Meninas, painted in the 1600s, is celebrated for its intricate composition, blending art, reality, and perspective. Velázquez, who was proud of his work's depth and narrative, actually included himself in the painting, which was very novel for the time. And it created a scene that really invited viewers to reflect on perception and perspective. However, a leading contemporary critic, Charles Lebrun, dismissed the entire piece because of what he saw as a flaw. There was a slight imperfection rendering of the dog's foot in the foreground, and he overlooked the brilliance of the larger work, dismissing the entire painting. Now, this story highlights how a narrow focus on small defects can sometimes obscure appreciation for the whole. Safety 1.0 focuses on a very vital goal, very important goal, eliminating defects. Safety 2.0 focuses on learning from successes, encouraging staff to build on what works well in the actual care settings to enhance safety and quality proactively. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Tim Morgenthaler, a professor of medicine here at Mayo Clinic and a vice chair of Mayo Clinic Quality. And my co-host is Sherry Nemec. Sherry?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Nemec, Consultation and Relationship Manager for Quality at Mayo Clinic. And you're right. I had no idea where you were going with that start, Dr. Morgenthaler. But when you got to the point about the foot, I mean, you're so right. Because can you imagine if you would have just said, oh, there's one little minor error, I'm just going to throw this whole thing out, and how much the world would have missed from all the wonderful things that went well in that painting. So great example.
Another work of art that's like that is the David. I mean, the David,
Yes.
who everybody knows about the David, and it's an absolute showstopper. But you know, when he first showed that, the court critic was critical of the fact that the hands are too small. And so that, okay, the hands are too small. Stand back and look at this miraculous piece of art.
It is amazing.
So anyway.
Yes.
Well, listen, so our guests today are two colleagues from Mayo Clinic, one from Florida and one from Arizona, Jen Cruz and Nina Hawthorne Spears. And I'm just wondering, maybe, Jen, could I ask you to just introduce yourselves to our guests and tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in quality?
Sure. Thank you. So, thanks for having me. I have been a nurse for over 20 years. I've been with Mayo Clinic for almost 2 years. I have been fortunate to have experienced many different roles in my career, including working in clinical research, the medical device industry, and much of my career has been in healthcare leadership, specifically service line management and nursing operations. I would say the one thing that's remained constant in all of my roles is a focus on quality and safety. I am currently a nurse administrator here at Mayo Clinic, Florida, where I oversee nursing practice transformation, professional development, academics, and our advanced care at home program.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us in this discussion. Nina Hawthorne Spears, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me as well. I'm excited to explore this conversation. Well, I've been a nurse for 20 years. It's been a quick 20 years. I actually have a background as a family nurse practitioner for a couple of years. And then I went ahead and decided to explore nursing education as well as Magnet, which is an accreditation within nursing. And it's the highest honor that an organization can receive to demonstrate that we have quality. And so, Mayo Clinic, we are a magnet organization. And with that, my current role encompasses magnet designation as well as nursing quality, education and professional development, as well as practice. Very excited to be here today.
I'm very happy that you're here, and I'm sure that you're both absolutely terrified that you agreed to come talk about high reliability organizations and safety 2.0, and I started the conversation with a painting. But maybe you could just share from your perspective, what do you think are the main philosophies and definitions of these concepts?
When I really think about high reliability organizations relative to nursing, what comes to mind is, of course, patient safety. I think that is important for all roles, but when I think about nursing specifically, it's how we are proactive in the care that we provide for our patients and not reactive, thinking about how we can build upon our strengths and how our nurses have a voice in the way they practice and that they're always looking to improve the practice that they provide. In addition to that, is connecting the everyday practice to those quality outcomes that we achieve. So, whether it is doing what some would call a nursing skill, such as giving a CHG bath, how does that ultimately lead to reduce hospital acquired infections? So it's really having that proactive approach and ownership, which leads to high reliability within nursing.
Well, I love
And
that answer. I think it does kind of showcase that perspective on, do we dwell on what happened? Well, yes, but we even more dwell on what could happen and be proactive and be seeking out how we can do things. Jen, do you have any thoughts about safety 2.0 as it relates to nursing in this discussion?
Yeah, I would say that I agree with everything that Nina shared. And just to build upon that, I would say that nurses really tend to focus on what works well within their daily routines. I also think that they're great at sharing successful strategies as well as collaborating through our professional governance structure to review and implement best practices across our organization, not only at our individual sites, but across the enterprise as a whole.
That's so fascinating to say that they're really good at sharing successes and what goes well. What are the circumstances that promote that sharing? I mean, is it done at the unit level, at the shift level, at the organization level? Just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say I think you're spot on. I think it happens at multiple levels, and I think that that's truly important. It happens on the individual unit level. We do huddles with our staff at the beginning of each shift. So there's two huddles each day, which I think is extremely important in sharing the successes that have occurred on each event in each individual unit. We also have a pretty robust committee structure as it pertains to our professional governance structure. And so a lot of information sharing occurs at that level. And then not only do we have committees at our individual site, but we also have enterprise committees. So we
Mm.
have an opportunity to share successes and best practices across our entire organization, which is really important.
Is that done in sort of a cascading manner, very purposefully, or is it more organic or both?
Yes.
Maybe it's not
Yes.
either or.
I would say it's probably a little bit of both, but it is structured. And Nina spoke a little bit to our magnet designation, which entails us having a really robust professional governance structure.
So Nina, I liked how when you were sharing, you brought up the point about that purposeful why, that meaning into why you're doing things and purpose into
Mm.
delivering excellent patient care. So how as a leader do you create an environment to communicate and engage with staff around quality improvement, maybe in other ways than what you just mentioned in the governance structure? Are there other things you want to mention?
Right. I do believe that professional governance structure and the committee structure that was mentioned are very important. But I think, in addition to that, as a leader, it's really creating that psychological safety with your teams that offer them the opportunity to speak up when they notice some opportunities within their practice, and then advocating for any change that they think should happen, especially if it's based on evidence. Certainly in tuned with innovation. I love innovation. So championing that innovation within their practice, but also being an advocate for the practices that can improve our patient care. So just being open to that and recognizing that they do also have a commitment to quality and want to provide the best care for our patients. I think it's important for our leaders to do.
Jen, anything you want to add on that? We talk a lot about psychological safety in right all the avenues that we work in within quality and Mayo Clinic. And do you have some examples or things that you might be able to share about how do you do that?
Mhm. I guess I would say that it helps to be a very transparent and authentic leader. And that helps make your team feel comfortable sharing. At least that's how I practice. I think servant leadership also serves in that area as well, making the staff feel comfortable coming to you not only when things are going well, but when things are not going so well. So I think that that's super important as well, is how you lead.
I was going to add on to that, Jen, what you said, because you
Hmm.
kind of triggered some thoughts in my mind
Hmm.
on how I actualize that with the staff. And I do believe in doing rounds with them, walking rounds within the
Hmm.
practice, also those one-on-one conversations, open door policy, really allowing access to me. Even as we all know, we can get busy, but just being open to have that conversation with them on a day to
Hmm.
day.
And one way that we've done that here in Florida too, to add to your point, Nina, which is great, we've started practice immersion. So really spending time with our bedside staff, working with them at the bedside, that also helps to open up the lines of communication with the bedside staff as well.
I imagine it also gives you a tremendous line of sight into what exactly is happening
Exactly.
there. Yeah. Yeah. What things have you learned or have others shared with you that they've learned by that practice that was sort of a surprise?
Sure. Well, we've learned a lot about workflow inefficiencies that are definitely a challenge to our staff, especially when it comes to the way that they're practicing within the unit. Definitely a lot of opportunities as it pertains to administrative burden that our staff have at the bedside as well. I would say we're probably some of the top things that we're seeing when we're immersing with our staff.
Thinking a little bit about our Safety 2.0 proactive approaches, as those things have been noticed, has there also been opportunities to see great examples of the right kind of workarounds, that actually overcome those barriers? And are those things that have been learned and spread?
Yes, we had an opportunity as it pertains to our fall rates at the beginning of the year. And we had an opportunity to spend some time on the units with our staff, the units that have been successful and having low fall rates, and learning from them and taking those strategies and spreading them across the units as well. So definitely.
We were chatting, I think, before, and there was a number of things that the two of you shared. Are there any other ones that have been successful that you want to highlight?
One that I would like to highlight is an event we did with some of the clinical staff and their leaders. It was a Kaizen, and as you know, Kaizen means good change. And what we did is we really brought in the frontline staff as well as their leaders to look at some of those opportunities that they had within the practice. They were seeing variable outcome metrics, and so they were trying to determine how can they sustain their outcomes and then also implement quickly some interventions that they knew would be successful. So we spent 5 days together, and at the end of those 5 days, they implemented some practices that made change, and they are still in practice to this day. We did do a pre-survey with the staff to see how engaged they were in quality, and then a post survey. And through that post survey, we were able to see that they're now more able to speak to their quality data. They can now connect those quality outcomes to their practices and also with each other have that peer accountability.
That's a
So,
fascinating, yeah, that's a
right.
fascinating project. Now, Nina, as a leader, I mean, how did you make space for that to happen? You say 5 days, and I'm like, woo, you
Wow.
know,
Let me tell you, it was a miracle. I'm not sure, but we planned
uh,
far ahead. So we actually did the pre-survey in May, and then we had the Kaizen in November. So
mm,
if you can imagine, it was months ahead and a lot of change management, and was able to get buy-in once again from those leaders to even get the staff members off of the floor who are usually very busy taking care of our patients. So I think that was a part of it. Just managing it
Yeah.
appropriately
So
and
a lot of
recognizing
advanced
the
planning.
importance. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Right.
that does send such a message, doesn't it, from the leadership that you're not only thinking about this, but you're planning well in advance and you're making space and time, which really tells people how important this is. And sometimes when these things happen and you hear these, success stories, I can't help but wonder, is it because of actual ideas that came from the event, or is it because of the fact that you had an event? It's tangible commitment that, yeah, they really mean it when they're talking about quality and safety. Maybe it's both.
Mhm.
I really feel as if it's both. And now, when I speak to those leaders of the unit, they said that Kaizen transformed the culture of quality on the unit. So that gets to the point of it may not have just been the actions, but it could have been that focused conversation on quality and safety.
So I have a question that you're going to hope I didn't ask, but I can't
Oh
help myself
boy.
now. I
He
can't help
always
Oh
myself
hops
now.
on
boy.
these.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. So you had this event, and I'm very excited to hear that when you talk to people who have participated in it, they tell you that it transformed. But I'm also mindful that there's quite a bit of turnover and new people coming in. Does that have an effect that endures even as new people come on? I just wonder if you have any sense of that.
I do have a sense of that. And, that's a great question. And I'm happy you asked it because that's the space we're in now. It's about that sustainability. So, how do you bring people on to this culture? Once again, enculturate them in the focus on quality. So, some structures that are in place to help sustain those great gains that we have include the twice a day huddle, where we now focus on quality and talk about it, their orientation, how they now have a focus on quality. Their preceptors are now bringing them on to be sure they understand some of
Mm,
those expectations. So it's embedding that structure and even the conversations that they have with their leaders. Their one on ones may look different now, right? Before it may have been focused on one thing, but now what does it look like when that leader focuses on quality when they're talking to
so
them?
it's,
So
it's really leading to a
you
cultural
have to
change
embed it.
as
Yes.
much more of an enduring, yeah. Any other projects that have been successful using these safety 2.0 approaches?
Sure. I can talk about some work that we have done here in Florida. Last year, we had a significant increase in pressure injuries, and we implemented many successful strategies, but there are a couple which I feel greatly influenced our success. The first one being we implemented a daily multidisciplinary ICU huddle, which will really allowed us to proactively manage the risks associated with our most vulnerable patient populations. So, this huddle included our bedside staff, unit leadership, our physicians, wound care nurses, patient safety specialists, our ICU, clinical nurse specialist, and respiratory therapy. And this proactive approach that we've been speaking to really contributed to our 50% reduction in pressure injuries year to
Wow,
date when we compare to where were at in 2023.
that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also identified that we had a trend of pressure injuries in our patients with fecal management systems. And our ICU staff, our bedside nurses, implemented their own multidisciplinary work group that were engaged at really changing both physician as well as nursing practices and improving the care for this specific patient population. And they were equally successful and decreased our fecal management system pressure injuries by 46%. I think both of these strategies really highlight that importance of that multidisciplinary approach and then really ensuring that our bedside staff are engaged in improvement strategies
Mm.
is super important as well.
Yeah, engaged, right? Given the
Yeah.
tools they need, empowered to, if you see something, right? We want you to lean into it. So it's amazing story. As the two of you think about your role in nurse leadership, what's on the horizon in this space that you're excited about?
First off, I will say I'm just really excited to work for an organization where our main value is the needs of our patients come first. As I indicated, I'm fairly new to Mayo Clinic, and so I'm just really excited about that. And we truly do embody that value. Our chief nurse officer, Tara Gross, is really passionate about quality and safety. And I think having her at that level being engaged is super important for our Department of Nursing. She really does infuse her passion throughout our department. She is currently guiding a team of nurse leaders who are developing a culture of impact and inquiry program. And the goal of this program is to fully integrate evidence-based practice and quality into our bedside staff's daily work, where it is constantly top of mind when they're practicing throughout the day. And I'm just really excited because I feel like this is going to just continue to elevate the practice of nursing. And then, most importantly, continually positively impact our patients' outcomes.
Well, that sounds amazing. We're going to have to learn more about that coming up, Dr.
You got
Morgenthaler. I'm putting
Yes,
that
we
on our
are.
list.
I put a note down here.
it.
Nina, how about from your perspective?
That's absolutely exciting. To add to what Jen just mentioned, when I really think about the future of quality and nursing and really creating that high reliability organization and safety 2.0, and just where we are, in healthcare overall, and this increased focus on innovation, which is important. We're kind of going through a revolution in a sense. So, from a nursing perspective, it's really being able to utilize those tools and inform them so that they are add on to create efficiencies within our practice and achieve those quality outcomes. So, how do we get nurses connected with those innovators so that those new products can lead to better safety for our patients? Just nurses really having a voice in those. And so we are very intentional about that here in Mayo Clinic, Arizona. We have a new knowledge and innovation subcommittee, actually, that is a subcommittee of nurses that are focused on that innovation and making sure they have a voice in those new innovations that come along to nursing and how they're implemented within the practice.
It's always fascinating to me after I've worked at Mayo for so long that, big enough organization that Mayo doesn't always know what Mayo is doing. And sometimes we learn about it in the most surprising places. Last week,
We do.
I was attending a collaboration conference. Mayo Clinic has a collaborative relationship with the Karolinska Institute in
Yes.
Stockholm, Sweden. So there I am. And lo and behold, there's a nurse that gets up and starts talking about exactly what you're just talking about.
Mhm.
Not only nurses connecting to what innovation tools are being developed, but actually moving beyond that and saying, hey, we need nurses entering in on the front end as early as possible in the innovation process so that people are really getting a good feel for what are the main problems that need to be solved. Really kind of going back to what you mentioned, Jen, about getting out on the floor and seeing firsthand what are the problems that are being experienced. So, well, this has been really an exciting conversation. I really appreciate, I want to just express my gratitude to both of you for spending your time with us and for everything you're doing to contribute to our work here at Mayo Clinic on behalf of our patients and our staff, and for sharing with our listeners. So thank you so much.
you.
Is there anything else that you all want to add before we say goodbye for today?
No, we just really appreciate you inviting us to share all of the exciting things that are happening within the Department of Nursing
It's
and
great.
quality.
We love our nurses. They're awesome. Collaboration is amazing.
Exactly. Well, we have come to the end of our podcast, and we're really glad that you could join us and hope that this information has been valuable to you. Again, Mayo Clinic's Key into Quality podcast aims to highlight some first steps in addressing important quality challenges in your organization. Our goal is to improve quality for patients and the populations that we all serve. So if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd be grateful if you left us a review on Apple Podcasts, a rating on Spotify, feedback wherever it is that you listen to us. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Let others in your organization know about it so the information can be spread. Until next time, goodbye.